So, well, I've had a number of cougar stories, but the most famous cougar story actually happened last year. I was, there's New Mexico, it's at the tail end of the Rocky Mountains here, and so kind of shoots up, right into Colorado. So northern New Mexico is a lot like southern Colorado. But on the western side of New Mexico, some of the best hunting is southwestern New Mexico. We have a big national forest area called the Gila National Forest, and it's just thousands of acres of national forest. I hunt in that there quite a bit. I was hunting last year in an area called Unit 15, and I have an Air Force friend of mine who's a helicopter pilot, and it was just like his second time hunting. And so we were up there, and we were working this one ridge line, and this is archery elk. So we're archery elk hunting, and the cougars, they basically they like the ridge lines for some reason because they have really good eyes, and so they work the ridge line, look down for animals. And this one cougar had been scraping all along this ridge line, and you could see he would actually scrape. He'd pull they paw at the ground, and then they urinate on it and make a little pile. And I told Drew, I said, you got to watch out here. I said, there's a cougar, and only the males scrape. And so I said, this male's been scraping around here. I said, you got to kind of watch out. And I said, it's no big deal. Just kind of, watch yourself. And so this one night I was onto a small little herd of elk. And I know I couldn't close the gap on them. Anyway, they saw me, and then we were kind of playing this little game. And so the next morning, I kind of went back to the same area, and they were gone. Everything was really, really quiet. And I thought, this is really unusual. It just seemed so unusually quiet. And so anyway, Drew went back to the camp, and this is about 9 o'clock in the morning. And I was walking around, and I was looking off into the distance, coming around some trees, and there was a big fire in this area, and there was some little trees, and I was walking around these little trees. And I was looking at the distance, and about right where Dave's at, all of a sudden I just noticed, I was looking above Dave, but I noticed right in front of me there was an elk dead on its side, partially buried. And this cougar had killed an elk, a full-grown, mature elk. So anyway, he was laying right there, and I knew instantly what had happened, because I knew this cougar was there, and I knew this elk were there, and everything was gone. And so he had been, he killed that elk that night, and probably everything within 10 miles had scattered, after they heard that. Sure. And so I jumped, I turned around real quick because
you knew he was there.
Well, the cougar's not going to be on the elk, guaranteed, because they're like superhuman, superfly, Yeah. And so I knew he wasn't there, so I turned around because I figured if anywhere he's behind me. And now I'm right on his elk kill, and it's not a good thing to be in this zone, and I'm only having archery. I just have my bow, right? So I jumped, turned around this way, and basically trying to look behind me. And as I turned right here, the cougar was right there, right next to a big giant ponderosa pine, and he was down on the ground. This is the ground. He was like this, and his ears were laid back, and his face was just completely scrunched.
So you had a few seconds.
He was about to just nail me, and he was right off my 90-degree thing. And so I just turned, and I just had my bow, and I just put my fist up, and I just kind of did a double take. And this guy had a huge head. He was about a 200-pound cougar, which is about as big as they get. And he looked more like an African lioness, if you can imagine. Didn't really look like a North American cougar. And so I looked at him, just kind of dumbstruck, and then I broke, because if you look at them straight eye to eye, they actually get confrontational. They'll attack you just from looking at them. Yeah. So I broke eye contact, and I kind of just started walking backward. And about 10 feet back, he just sat up just like a dog, just kind of sat up and just watched me. Yeah. And I thought, that is unusual. So anyway, I grabbed 2 or 3 arrows in my hand. And I thought, well, at least if he attacks me, I was thinking he was going to attack me. I'll stick him with these arrows in his chest, Anyway, I walked back to about 50 yards, and then I kind of hunkered behind a tree, and then at that point, he started to walk towards me, like, where it was kind of like cat and mouse game, and then I got back in the open again. I'm like, I'm here, buddy. So anyway, we went back to about 100 yards, and then I marked the GPS spot, and then I hightailed it back to the camp, and I told Drew about this whole deal, and then he got all excited, and he wanted to come back, so we went back and actually found the cougar in a tree, sleeping, and came down and got some video of him. But anyway, it was pretty... That was closest to...
Is your heart rate up any?
My heart rate was up for about 2 days.
You probably didn't sleep at night. That's flat out crazy. Yeah.
But I thought it was a complete honor. Yeah. People thought, they said, why did you shoot him? I said, it was just too beautiful an environment. This was like nature at its best. This guy had just killed an 800-pound, lion, elk. And he knew he clearly knew that I wasn't interested at that point. I started backing up, and so he just thought, well, there's no big deal, no reason to kill this little guy. Yeah. And so
got plenty to eat already.
Got plenty to eat. His belly was full, yeah. And so that's my most interesting story. And I can still see his. I got some pictures of him, but he is just absolutely just the most beautiful cat. And you know, like I said, I mean, I hunt a lot of things. I don't mind killing things, but I just felt like, you know, this is really an environment that was just kind of left, just best to leave sort of back to where it was at.